Golden sunlight bathed the peaceful neighborhoods of Newark, New Jersey as evening approached. The warm rays reflected off a sleek black Lexus LS cruising effortlessly down a tree-lined street. Towering oak trees created lengthy shadows while beautiful houses with perfectly maintained gardens peeked through ornate iron fencing. Everything seemed tranquil, almost idyllic, with nothing but the gentle sound of rubber meeting pavement disturbing the quiet atmosphere. At the wheel was Olivia Harper, a 42-year-old African-American woman whose very presence commanded respect and quiet confidence. Wearing a crisp navy business suit, she maintained perfect posture, though her eyes revealed the exhaustion of an incredibly demanding day. Serving as Deputy Director of the FBI's Criminal Cyber Response and Services Division, Olivia shouldered responsibilities that required unwavering determination, sharp intellect, and an absolute dedication to upholding justice. Her position overseeing major criminal cases, anti-terrorism operations, and emergency response nationwide represented no ordinary challenge, and today's lengthy conference at Newark's FBI regional headquarters had completely drained her energy. Gentle jazz melodies drifted through the vehicle's premium audio system, a precious moment of tranquility for Olivia as she followed her well-known path home. A saxophone's smooth notes wove through the cabin, providing comfort after countless hours of heated discussions regarding an international contraband operation that had kept her entire team on high alert for weeks. Her fingers rested gently against the leather-wrapped steering wheel, her delicate silver timepiece catching glimpses of the diminishing daylight. Growing up in Philadelphia within a middle-class household, Olivia had been raised with an intense determination to excel despite facing obstacles related to both her race and gender. Her rise to among the FBI's highest-ranking positions demonstrated her incredible perseverance. However, this journey hadn't come without wounds, subtle discrimination, blatant bias, and the endless pressure to validate herself in environments where she frequently stood as the sole black woman present. The luxury sedan smoothly navigated, a gentle bend, its motor humming quietly as Olivia maintained a steady 35 mph pace, comfortably within posted limits. These evening commutes represented treasured opportunities to unwind before returning to her role's intense demands. Her mobile device rested silently in the center compartment. She'd already coordinated with her team, ensuring no critical communications would interrupt this brief moment of peace. These suburban areas felt completely removed from her professional chaos, busy metropolitan centers, undercover missions, and critical decision-making. Here, life moved at a slower rhythm, allowing Olivia precious moments to simply breathe. But this serenity wouldn't continue. Suddenly, flashing red and blue emergency lights appeared in her rearview mirror, harsh and startling, followed by a brief siren blast. Her eyebrows drew together in confusion. She hadn't exceeded speed limits or violated any regulations. Drawing upon her seasoned law enforcement instincts, she activated her turn signal, reduced speed, and carefully moved to the roadside, keeping her hands visible while her mind began processing the potential trouble ahead. Olivia Harper remained, composed in her Lexus LS, the jazz now silenced as emergency lights pulsed behind her. She lowered her window partway, keeping both hands clearly visible on the steering wheel, a practice developed through years in law enforcement. She understood proper procedure, maintain composure, follow protocol, avoid escalation. The quiet, suburban Newark street felt unusually still as patrol car doors opened behind her. Two officers emerged, their footsteps crunching on the gravel shoulder. The senior officer, David Mitchell, approximately 48 years old, possessed a heavy build and facial features marked by both weariness and arrogance. His penetrating gaze examined the Lexus, dwelling on its polished exterior before focusing on Olivia. A subtle sneer played at his mouth, barely concealed. Behind him, Ryan Carter, younger at perhaps 29, moved with restless energy, his hand positioned near his weapon, his attention scanning the vehicle as though searching for something incriminating. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Mitchell announced, his tone carrying forced courtesy that never reached his eyes. "You seem to be moving rather quickly back there. This street has a 35 mph speed restriction, His statement remained deliberately vague. No specific details, just enough to sound official. Olivia looked directly at him, her response steady and articulate. "Good afternoon, officer. I maintained exactly 35 mph, staying within legal limits. Could you specify the precise speed your equipment recorded?" She knew she'd broken no laws, and her FBI experience had trained her to analyze situations like this. Mitchell's body language and his slightly faltering smirk indicated this stop had nothing to do with speeding violations. Mitchell disregarded her inquiry, moving closer to the window, his eyes examining her suit, her watch, the car's leather appointments. "Impressive vehicle," he remarked, his voice becoming sharp with invasive curiosity. "Must be quite expensive. What kind of work allows you to afford something like this?" The question crossed professional boundaries, having no connection to any traffic infraction, and Olivia felt a recognizable sting. His tone carried underlying assumptions, the kind she'd encountered far too often as a black woman in spaces where her presence was frequently questioned. Meanwhile, Carter circled the vehicle, examining taillights and license plates, his movements calculated to create unease. "Officer," Olivia responded, her voice remaining calm, yet firm, "my profession bears no relation to your traffic stop. If you possess evidence of any violation, please present it. Otherwise, I'd prefer to continue my journey home." Mitchell's sneer disappeared, replaced by a scowl. He wasn't accustomed to being challenged, particularly by someone he clearly misjudged. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice and leaning so close she could detect coffee on his breath. "We can handle this. Simply, but you appear intelligent. Issues like speeding, perhaps problems with window tinting, can become complicated. Court appearances, possibly impounding this expensive car." He paused, rubbing his thumb against his index finger in the universal money gesture. "Or we can resolve everything right here. Keep things uncomplicated. You assist us, we allow you to leave. No complications." Carter, standing nearby, looked away but remained silent, clearly participating in their scheme. Olivia's stomach turned with revulsion, but her expression remained steely. She'd witnessed corruption before in her FBI work, but confronting such blatant abuse still ignited cold fury. She leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with Mitchell. "Officer Mitchell," she said, reading his name badge, her voice cutting like steel. "I've committed no infractions. I will not offer bribes to you or anyone else. If you have legitimate evidence, issue a citation. If not, return my identification and allow me to proceed. And I recommend you consider carefully what you're attempting. This appears to be extortion." Her words were precise, her tone unshakable, but they only intensified Mitchell's irritation. Carter shifted uncomfortably, sensing the mounting tension while still supporting his partner's lead. The atmosphere grew heavy, the situation balanced on the edge of something far worse. As Olivia prepared herself for what she anticipated would follow, tension continued building on that quiet suburban road. Olivia Harper sat rigidly in her Lexus LS, her pulse steady despite the nausea rising in her throat. Officer David Mitchell's extortion attempt had just been firmly rejected, and the atmosphere on the quiet Newark suburban street crackled with dangerous tension. Mitchell's expression twisted, his artificial politeness crumbling into something much darker. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he snarled, his voice low and poisonous. "A black woman in a vehicle like this? Acting all superior? You don't get to dictate how I perform my duties." His words dripped with bigotry, each word a targeted attack on her race and gender. Officer Ryan Carter, hovering beside the car, smirked, encouraged by Mitchell's hostility. He struck the Lexus roof, the sharp sound designed to intimidate. "That's right, you heard him," Carter added, his tone cocky. "You're making this more difficult than necessary." Olivia's grip tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles straining as she struggled to maintain her composure. 2 decades with the FBI had prepared her for high-pressure situations, but the obvious racism and abuse of authority stung like a fresh injury. She recognized this had moved beyond a simple traffic stop. It had become personal, an attack on her very right to exist in this space. "Officers," she stated, her voice calm but edged with steel, "you're overstepping boundaries. My career and my vehicle are irrelevant to your concerns. Without evidence of any violation, this stop is unlawful. I'm requesting again, return my identification and permit me to leave." Her gaze locked onto Mitchell's, unwavering, challenging him to retreat. Mitchell's face reddened, veins protruding at his temples. Her defiance struck directly at his ego, and he refused to back down. "Oh, you're a tough one, aren't you?" he sneered, stepping nearer to the window. "You believe you can argue with me? I suspect this car connects to something illegal? Drug proceeds, perhaps, or something worse." His accusations were laden with ugly stereotypes, and he made no attempt to hide his contempt. Carter, following his partner's cue, approached the driver's door, his hand remaining near his weapon. "Exit the vehicle, ma'am," Carter commanded, his voice sharp. "Immediately." Olivia's mind raced. She understood that compliance offered the safest path to prevent giving them justification for further escalation, but every instinct rebelled against this injustice. "This is unlawful," she declared, her tone steady. "I'm requesting contact with your supervisor and my legal counsel." Mitchell laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Supervisor? Legal counsel? You don't make demands here." He nodded toward Carter. "Remove her. She's resisting, creating a disturbance. Let's charge her with disorderly conduct and failure to comply." Walchgas. Accusations were fabricated nonsense created on the spot, but Mitchell's authority gave them weight. Carter yanked the driver's door open, his actions rough. "Out! Immediately!" he barked. Olivia took a measured breath, stepping from the Lexus with deliberate calm, keeping her hands visible to prevent any misunderstanding. The cool evening air struck her face, but it provided little relief from the fire burning in her chest. Carter seized her arm, twisting it behind her back with unnecessary force. She winced as sharp pain shot through her shoulder, but she refused to cry out. "You're making an error," she said, her voice low and controlled. "This is illegal, and you'll be held accountable." Her words hung in the air, ignored but searing. Carter produced his handcuffs, the metal gleaming under the fading sunlight. He snapped them onto her wrists, tightening until they cut into her skin. Olivia stood tall, her face a mask of determination, even as the cold steel pressed against her flesh. Mitchell watched, arms folded, cruel satisfaction in his eyes. "See? What happens when you don't cooperate?" he taunted, his voice thick with disdain. "A black woman like you should understand better than to argue." The racial insult hit like a physical blow, but Olivia didn't react. She memorized every detail. Mitchell's name tag, Carter's badge number, the patrol vehicle's license plate, the exact time on her watch. As an FBI deputy director, trained to remain sharp under pressure, she knew this wasn't over. Carter pushed her toward the patrol car, his grip bruising as he forced her into the rear seat. The door slammed shut with a heavy thud, trapping her in the cramped, stale space. Through the metal mesh barrier, she could see Mitchell and Carter exchanging satisfied glances, already celebrating their perceived victory. "Good catch today," Mitchell muttered, climbing into the driver's seat. Carter chuckled, sliding in beside him. "Yeah, she'll regret that attitude. They believed they'd won, thought they could humiliate her and escape consequences." But Olivia sat silently, her spine straight, her eyes burning with quiet rage. She wasn't merely a victim, she was a force, and she was already planning her response. The patrol car departed, leaving her Lexus alone beside the road, its elegant form glowing softly under the last rays of the New Jersey sunset. The patrol vehicle's tires ground against gravel as it entered the dimly illuminated parking area of the small Newark police station. The two-story brick structure appeared weathered, its faded signage barely readable in the twilight. Olivia Harper remained in the back seat, her wrists still secured by tight handcuffs, the metal cutting into her skin. Despite the pain and humiliation of being treated like a criminal, her expression stayed calm, her eyes alert and concentrated. She'd committed every detail of the incident to memory. Officers David Mitchell and Ryan Carter's identities, their badge numbers, the patrol car's registration, and every word of their racist taunts and extortion efforts. As Deputy Director of the FBI's Criminal Cyber Response and Services Division, Olivia understood how to maintain composure under extreme pressure, and she was already formulating her next actions. Mitchell and Carter, smug and unaware, thought they'd prevailed, but they were about to discover they'd targeted the wrong person. Mitchell opened the rear door and pulled Olivia out, his grip harsh as he escorted her toward the station entrance. Carter followed, his earlier confidence now mixed with nervous unease, as though he sensed something was amiss. Inside, the station smelled of stale coffee and aging paperwork, its fluorescent lighting casting harsh illumination over the scuffed linoleum flooring. They led Olivia to the processing desk where Sergeant Karen Walsh, a 50-year-old woman with graying hair and weary eyes, sat completing paperwork on a clipboard. She looked up, her expression neutral but curious as the officers brought Olivia forward. "What's the situation here?" Walsh inquired, her voice flat, accustomed to processing arrests at shift's end. "Got a difficult one, Sarge?" Mitchell announced, his tone smug as he tossed Olivia's driver's license and vehicle registration onto the counter. "Disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, failure to comply, driving that fancy Lexus like she runs the place." Carter nodded, arms crossed, a smirk playing across his face. Olivia stood tall, her suit slightly wrinkled but her posture unwavering, her gaze cutting through the officer's arrogance. Walsh picked up the license, squinting at it through her glasses, then glanced at Olivia. Something about the woman's calm, commanding presence made Walsh pause. She didn't resemble their typical detainees. "Name's Olivia Harper?" Walsh read aloud, typing into the computer. "Occupation?" she asked, following standard procedure. The room seemed to hold its breath. Olivia's voice, clear and steady, cut through the tension like a blade. "Deputy Director, FBI Criminal Cyber Response and Services Division." The words landed like a thunderclap. Walsh froze, her pen clattering onto the desk, her mouth falling open as she stared at Olivia, then at the computer screen, then back again. "Deputy Director of the FBI," she stammered, her glasses sliding down her nose. Mitchell's smug grin vanished, his face draining to a sickly pale. Carter's smirk twisted into a grimace, his eyes wide with panic. The air grew thick, the weight of their mistake crashing down like an avalanche. They hadn't just stopped a random woman. They'd handcuffed, insulted, and attempted to extort one of the most powerful figures in federal law enforcement. Mitchell staggered, his knees buckling as he grabbed the counter for support. No, ma'am, we had no idea," he choked out, sweat beading on his forehead. "We're incredibly sorry. It's a mistake, a massive mistake." Carter, trembling, dropped to one knee, his voice shaking. "Please, we didn't intend this. We swear we have families. Please don't destroy us." Their pleas echoed pathetically, desperately, a stark contrast to their earlier arrogance. Olivia's gaze was cold, unflinching, as she looked down at them. "Sergeant Walsh," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "remove these handcuffs immediately, then contact your chief and notify the FBI's Newark field office at once. I want agents here now." Walsh, hands trembling, fumbled for the keys, unlocking the cuffs with a soft click. She grabbed the phone, her voice shaky as she relayed the situation. Mitchell and Carter remained frozen, their world collapsing as Olivia stood tall, prepared to ensure justice would be served. The Newark police station transformed into a whirlwind of chaos in the moments following Olivia Harper's revelation of her identity as Deputy Director of the FBI's Criminal Cyber Response and Services Division. The atmosphere buzzed with nervous energy as Sergeant Karen Walsh, still shaken, rushed to notify her chief and the FBI's Newark field office. Officers David Mitchell and Ryan Carter stood motionless, their faces ashen, perspiration soaking through their uniforms. Their arrogant confidence had completely evaporated. replaced by raw terror as they grasped the severity of their actions, stopping, insulting, attempting to extort, and illegally arresting one of the FBI's highest-ranking officials. Olivia, now free from the handcuffs, stood tall, her navy suit slightly disheveled, but her presence absolutely commanding. Her sharp eyes surveyed the room, absorbing every detail, her mind already organizing the steps necessary to ensure justice. She ignored the officers' pathetic apologies, focusing on accountability rather than their panic. Within minutes, the station's parking lot filled with black SUVs, their flashing lights cutting through the New Jersey darkness. FBI agents, led by the special agent in charge of the Newark field office, entered with grim expressions. The local police chief arrived shortly after, his face showing a mixture of dread and embarrassment. He approached Olivia, offering a hurried apology. "Deputy Director Harper, I'm deeply sorry. This behavior is completely unacceptable," he stammered, but Olivia's cool nod made clear she wasn't there for empty words. "Chief, I expect a comprehensive investigation," she stated, her voice steady but firm. "Your officer's conduct, racial profiling, attempted extortion, false arrest, constitutes serious criminal behavior. I want Internal Affairs and the FBI involved immediately." The chief nodded, promising swift action, but the weight of the scandal, it was already becoming apparent. Mitchell and Carter were immediately stripped of their badges and weapons, their hands shaking as they were escorted to separate holding areas. The FBI assumed control, coordinating with the police department's Internal Affairs Division to launch a joint investigation. Dashboard camera footage, patrol logs, and Olivia's precise account of the incident, including Mitchell's extortion, gesture, and Carter's rough treatment, formed overwhelming evidence. The investigation delved deeper, revealing a disturbing pattern. Mitchell, with nearly 2 decades on the force, had a documented history of complaints regarding intimidation and racial bias, though none had resulted in serious consequences. Carter, younger but eager to follow Mitchell's example, had multiple reports of excessive force, primarily against minority motorists. The evidence was irrefutable, and with Olivia's status as a high-ranking FBI official, the case immediately gained national attention. News of the incident spread rapidly. Headlines screamed, "FBI Deputy Director illegally arrested in shocking police misconduct case." Protests gathered outside the Newark station, with community leaders and civil rights organizations demanding accountability. The mayor, under intense pressure, issued a public statement condemning the officers' actions and promising reform. Behind closed doors, the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division joined the case, building a federal indictment against Mitchell and Carter. Charges accumulated: civil rights violations, conspiracy to extort under color of law, unlawful detention, and obstruction of justice. Olivia's testimony was meticulous, delivered with the precision of a seasoned investigator. She recounted every word, every gesture, every moment of their abuse, her voice steady but carrying the pain of facing prejudice once again. The trial, held in a federal courthouse in Newark, became a media sensation. Reporters packed the galleries while cameras lined the courthouse steps. Mitchell and Carter, now disgraced, sat slumped in their seats, their defense attorneys grasping at weak excuses: stress, miscommunication, systemic problems. But the evidence was unshakable. Dashboard audio captured Mitchell's extortion attempt and racial slurs, while Carter's aggressive actions were clearly visible on video. Olivia took the witness stand, her presence commanding respect. She spoke not just as a victim, but as a leader, emphasizing the betrayal of public trust and the damage of systemic bias in policing. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before delivering unanimous guilty verdicts on all major charges. Sentencing marked a landmark moment. The federal judge, a stern woman with decades of experience, didn't mince words. "Your actions," she addressed Mitchell and Carter, "were a disgrace to the badge you wore. You targeted Ms. Harper because of her race and gender, abused your authority, and undermine the very laws you swore to uphold. Each received 12 years in federal prison, a harsh but appropriate sentence for the severity of their crimes, especially against a federal official. The courtroom buzzed with approval, and outside, cheers erupted from activists who viewed the verdict as progress toward justice. The case sent shockwaves throughout police departments nationwide, prompting reviews of training and oversight procedures. For Olivia, it represented a bittersweet victory. She'd fought for justice, but the scars of that evening remained, a reminder of the work still needed to eliminate prejudice. Olivia Harper drove her Lexus LS through the peaceful streets of Newark, New Jersey, the familiar golden tint of the late afternoon sun casting lengthy shadows across the pavement. Weeks had passed since the trial that sent officers David Mitchell and Ryan Carter to federal prison for 12 years, a verdict that resonated far beyond the small police station where her ordeal originated. The case had ignited nationwide discussions, with news outlets repeatedly featuring her story and activists celebrating her as a symbol of resilience against injustice. But for Olivia, the victory transcended headlines. It was deeply personal. As Deputy Director of the FBI's Criminal Cyber Response and Services Division, she dedicated her career to fighting for justice. This experience, though painful, only strengthened her determination. The jazz playing softly through the car speakers felt like a quiet acknowledgement of her strength, a reminder of the peace she'd reclaimed. Back at the FBI's Newark field office, Olivia immersed herself in her work with renewed purpose. The incident hadn't broken her. It had sharpened her focus. She advocated for stronger oversight of local law enforcement, pushing for training to combat racial bias and corruption. Her testimony during the trial, composed and unwavering, had inspired colleagues and strangers alike, and she used that momentum to drive change. Meetings with federal officials and community leaders became her platform to address systemic issues, ensuring no one else would endure the humiliation she experienced. Yet late at night, when the office was quiet, Olivia sometimes relived that evening. The taunts, the handcuffs, the sting of being judged by her skin color. It fueled her, not with anger, but with fierce determination to improve the system. The Newark Police Department, shaken by the scandal, underwent comprehensive reforms. New training programs, stricter disciplinary measures, and federal oversight were implemented under public scrutiny. Olivia's case became a benchmark, a warning to those who abuse their power and a beacon for those seeking justice. She received correspondence from across the country. Young women, people of color, even police officers thanking her for standing strong. One note from a black teenager in Philadelphia, her hometown, read, "You showed me I can be anything." It brought tears to her eyes, a rare crack in her composed exterior. She kept that letter on her desk as a reminder of why she fought. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in orange hues, Olivia felt quiet pride. She had transformed a moment of injustice into a catalyst for change, proving no one was above the law, not even those hiding behind a badge. Her drive home was no longer just a commute. It was a testament to her strength, to the millions watching. Her story unfolded on YouTube. She had a message. Justice might be delayed, but it always prevails. Share this story, she urged. Let it inspire others to stand up, speak out, demand better. Tomorrow, another story of courage would emerge, and Olivia would be ready to lead the charge, her Lexus gliding forward under the fading light, carrying her toward a future she was shaping, one fight at a time.